My name is Christian Jambora, and I'm from Frederick, Maryland. Everyone in my family traces back to the Philippines. So if I were to answer that question, like, where is your family from? I think at its deepest sort of root, I would have to say the Philippines. My mom's family went through the same lottery system that a lot of other immigrant families go through when they're trying to come to the United States. I remember her saying that, like, before she came to America, she thought that everything would be so much better as soon as she came to the States and crossed that border. The sort of hardships that they were going through in the Philippines would be lifted, and she wouldn't have to worry about a lot of that anymore. But it's not just like you set foot on this country and, like, everything is fine. My dad didn't come to the United States with his family. He was able to join the U.S. Navy. He saw that as an opportunity to start a new life and escape the cycle of poverty that he and his family had been trapped in while he was growing up. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I found out that my dad was going to be deployed to Iraq. I remember just standing in disbelief when my dad and my mom told me that. I knew enough to know that my dad leaving to go to Iraq was definitely going to be a very bad thing. Growing up and even now, I think one of the biggest problems I've always had is that I'm very reluctant to show emotion or weakness. 2 weeks before my dad actually left, I just broke down crying, and I asked him if I was going to see him again, and because I was scared. Before my dad left, he and I shared like a very private moment, and he told me that I was going to have to step up and be the man of the house now. After he left, it was just me, my sister, and my mom. You know, that sort of paternalistic role was going to be gone. And I think it was especially important for me to step up to make sure that my sister had not only, you know, a leading female figure in her life, but also like a leading male figure. And I think it was weird for me because I sort of had to fill in those shoes for myself as well. That really forced me to grow up at the super tender age of 8. My dad was an officer in the Navy, and when he was away in Iraq, he could make phone calls every single day. And at many times we'd hear gunshots and explosions in the background, and we'd always ask, "Oh, what's that? What's that noise?" And he would be very nonchalant about it, just acting as if it was something so commonplace for him that it didn't really affect him or scare him anymore. And I'm not sure if it's because he was used to it at that point, or if it's because he wanted to project this sort of strength and resilience to us. In the days before my dad's return from Iraq, a lot of my friends and my friends' parents and my neighbors and my teachers would ask if I was excited. And like, of course I was excited. But when the day came, it was weird because when I saw him for the first time, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I had gotten so used to not having him around that I had just forgotten what it was like to have a dad in my life. My dad told me that one of the biggest challenges he had when he returned from Iraq was connecting with my sister and I. He said that my sister and I had just acted like he was a complete stranger, like we didn't remember who he was at all. I just felt like I had lost that connection over that time. I remember when I was like 10 years old, the way I'd think about things and the way I'd look at situations just was so different than a lot of the friends I had. They had lots of opportunities to sort of just fool around and do things and then learn lessons from their parents. But because I only had one parent around, there wasn't as much room for forgiveness. I think that early maturity definitely pushed me a lot throughout middle and high school. I always sort of like self-identified as this overachiever, and it wasn't because like my parents were pushing me to or anything. Like my parents were never like super anal about grades or me doing super well or me being super successful. But I think I was sort of the enforcer onto myself whenever I would mess up. So I would correct myself. I would tell myself what I needed to do better moving forward. When my dad was my age, he wasn't worrying about what classes to take. He was worrying about how food was going to end up on the table. And when my mom was my age, she didn't have the opportunity to go to a school at a caliber near that of Middlebury. When I think about challenges that I'm facing, whether it's in school or outside of school or with friends or with anything, I like to think about my parents' experiences and my parents' lifestyles. That helps me remember everything that my parents went through to make sure that I could be where I am. That to me is really motivating and really keeps me driven. And I think that's what that's what keeps me like me.